little bit. Okay. I'm gonna put your bag and your jacket on this chair over here, okay? Alright. So I'm gonna put my I wrote some questions, but hey troops. So today is special, right? Today is extremely special. Why is today special, True? Today is special because I reached out. Christian has actually mentored me before. So I reached out to Christian and I asked if I could interview her about some special topics, and she gave me a yes. So I'm extremely excited to just have Christian on, Mrs. Christian Farmer, and for her to share her story and her journey of just this nonprofit world and business and just the relationships that come along with it and so forth. So, how are you today, Christian?
I am very well. I am blessed. I feel like that's a cliche, but I'm well. I'm very well.
Okay, no, I love to hear it. So before I like dive into asking questions and things like that, tell people like who you are. If there was somebody that was watching and they're like, okay, I don't know you, like who's
okay? I'm sorry. You want me to stop? Mm-hmm. Do you sure you don't want me to?
You want to do it
sit here?
So we're at the
level?
same height.
Yeah.
We can do that. I'm gonna switch it out. I'm gonna just put this over here. That's the one I originally had there. I'll put this one over.
Okay. Yeah. Conversation, eye level.
Yeah, no, that works. I feel like I wanna. Okay, you stay where you are. I'm just gonna move this over a little bit. Real time production, right? That's better. Hey troops, if you tuned in, let me know where you're watching from. Yesterday we had people from New York watching. Okay, I probably should have what's in it. All right. Okay, real time production, but we're back. So, okay, now tell people, who are you? Like, if they didn't know you from a can of paint.
Yeah, well, am I talking? I'm looking at you, right?
Yeah, whatever is. Okay. Yeah, you're not.
All right. Well, my name is Kristen, and I really would say I'm a healer. Is really what I am. You know, everything about my aura and essence and presence really is from this healing place because I, of course, have been on my own healing journey, but then also supporting people on their healing journey. So overall, I'm a healer, but that shows up as me being a teacher and being a writer and a coach and a consultant. But I am a healer.
I love that. And when you say healer, like some people might think like medicine and things like that. Like, what's your goal? Why do you want people to be healed?
Oh, because our world is in a state of chaos.
No, that's true. That's true. We just talked about that a little bit. Like, and that chaos looks like so many things, and it's trickling down to like the kids, the grandparents, like everybody is actually affected by it. So no, I see that. So let's go back to the beginning a little bit, right? So like you started your journey as this doula. If I read correctly, you watched the episode of A Baby Story at the age 16, right?
It wasn't that show. It wasn't A Baby Story.
Okay.
I can never remember the name of the show, but it was about a midwife, and I think she was in Texas.
Okay.
And she had a birthing center.
Okay.
And it was like the first time that I had ever saw a birth done in this very calm, relaxing, like flowy kind of way. Mm-hmm. Like before then, it was all hospitals and people running around crazy and this lady giving birth. So I fell in love with the tranquility
Mm-hmm.
of this midwife handling these patients, these mothers,
Mm-hmm.
and this very vulnerable time of giving birth.
No, that makes sense. And so, like, how did that spark birth? Like, where did it go from that idea to?
So I wanted to be a midwife. I never considered being a doula ever. I just wanted to get straight to catching babies. I wanted to do birthing center births, and I wanted to do home births.
Okay.
I knew I didn't want to work in a hospital setting because I love the intimacy of this more tranquil setting. Plus, I thought like, well, women have been giving birth for like millions of years,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we didn't always give birth in hospitals. So I'm always kind of thinking like, how do we get back to nature? Always, that's a part of the healing aspect,
Yeah.
right? Getting back to nature is always how we heal. So I went off to college. I started off as a nursing major. This is me knowing that I didn't want to work in a hospital,
Mm-hmm.
right? But at the time, it was only one pathway that I was aware of to become a midwife, which was to become a certified nurse midwife. So my first semester at Kent State University in the nursing program, I was like, yeah, see, I really don't want to be a nurse. I want to be a midwife, but I don't want to be a nurse.
Right.
But I didn't know of any other options, right? So I ended up changing my major. I actually changed my major like probably 3 or 4 times. I landed on communication studies, graduated, and then right after I graduated, I was like, no, I still want to do this midwifery thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went down a whole bunch of different pathways, tried to, go to the community college, but everything was still pushing to become a nurse. And I was like, I just don't want to do this. So anyway, it wasn't until I applied to this midwifery college in Utah, I was willing to commute or spend time from Ohio to Utah to become a midwife that didn't have to work in a hospital. And so when I applied to the program, they denied me. And I was just like, what do y'all mean? Like, this is my life mission to be a midwife.
Right.
But what they said in a rejection letter was that we need you to go get some more birth experience and then come back and reapply. And I'm thinking, like, how the heck am I supposed to get some birth experience? Is this supposed to be my birth experience? So that's how I ended up becoming a doula.
Okay, no,
right.
So you mentioned this thing about like you were adamant about not wanting to work in a hospital. What are some things you see in a hospital setting when you see like Black mothers specifically and all mothers, like, but when you see them in this hospital setting versus working with a doula or a birth worker outside, like, what is some differences? Like, why is it so important to have birth workers for moms?
Well, doulas are meant to, well, first of all, let me back up and say that the word doula itself is a Greek word and it means a woman who serves. Okay. Simply, that's what it means. However, traditionally, for centuries, there have only been women allowed in the birthing room, right? Wherever that is. So that could be the midwife, and it might be somebody there supporting the mother, and that person may not have had a name or a title, but essentially what she's doing is doulaing the mother, right? So there's always been this mentality of women needing emotional support, specifically during this period of time when they're pregnant, because we can get into a whole bunch of spiritual aspects of pregnancy and birth, but basically is to be able to support and calm the mother as this life is coming into the world, right? Because the baby is already affected by what the mother is thinking and feeling, and so this is a very vulnerable time when a woman is having a baby. It's a time where all women are like, I can't do this. I was like, I was thinking the other day about, I don't know how many times I'd have been in birth and I always hear mothers be like, I can't do this. And I'm like, yes, you can do this. And you're going to do this because the baby is coming out. Like,
exactly. Like, you don't have a choice at this point. Like, you literally have to do this.
It's happening. Okay. So you can do it.
Yeah.
And it's so symbolic of every other time in our lives where we are giving birth to ourselves again,
Yeah.
right?
The
You feel
rebirth
like you
happens.
can't do it, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, spirit is like, you got to, because
You have no
you
choice.
have to. This chapter is over and this one is beginning. So it's symbolic on so many levels, and for me, I feel like that's what I love so much about it as well. Like, yes, literally the birth or whatever, but like figuratively, it symbolizes just a cycle of life that we go through, and that's important. I think women need to do it a bunch of different times in their lives. Birth is just one.
That makes sense, because it's like that thing of growth. It's like you're going to have those growing pains, you're going to have those changing pains, but having, I guess I look at it like that support system, having that support system there to assist you, to help you, to aid you, to kind of lean on, because it does get difficult doing it yourself. Now, you talked about Kent a little bit, and we talked about this support system, so I think that's the perfect time to, like, you had an experience, you got pregnant while at Kent, right? And so, like, how did you stay motivated during that time and still, like, focused on building and doing this birth work while experiencing your own changes, essentially?
Yeah, I think that my me getting pregnant was another catalyst to what led me to say, hey, women need to be able to access doulas free of charge, because I was in my third year of college and I didn't have any money. I knew what a doula was, but for one, I didn't know where to look for one like where are they at, right? And then how am I going to even pay for one if I do find one?
Right.
So my own experience and having my child while I was in college really shaped that for me in the future. My son's father and I were together. We lived together, and I was supported by him. But then also my friends were me and my friends went to college together, so we were like neighbors, and like, so it just all worked out, and I really did have a support system that a lot of mothers don't have. I really truly had that, and I've had that throughout. My son is almost 17 now, and so I've had that throughout his journey, of having that support system. And so the I know that support saves lives, right? Because at the time where you want to jump off the ledge, and there's a lot of people who think about killing themselves, and the support, if we had that community support, there will be a less I'm sorry, there will be a lot less. If we had that support, there will be a lot less suicides and mothers giving up. I remember seeing this young lady while I was kind of going through this transition with my, having a baby, still want to be in birth work and trying to figure out that journey for myself. I remember this young girl, she killed her baby here, and she had already had she had it was three of them in total, kids. She had her oldest child, and she had just had a baby, and she killed her middle child, her son, and he was like 2 maybe. And it really probably just came from her not having no support, the father's not being around, her doing it on her own, and she just got frustrated one day,
And crashed.
right? And cracked and took it out on her son, and did not realize what she did until afterwards. Like, what the WTF? I just killed my child, right? And so her response to that was to hide it, right? And to try to cover it up.
The trash can. Is this the one who put the baby in the trash can? Okay,
And so people can judge that situation and say, oh, what a monster she is. How terrible she is. What a horrible person that she is. You know what I mean? Whereas she wasn't a horrible person. She just didn't have the support and had a moment. How many times people have snapped on their kids? They didn't kill them. You know what I'm saying? But how many times you snapped on your kids and then snapped back into reality and said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. You know what I mean? Hers just went a little far. But do we even know her story? You know what I mean?
And do we care enough to know enough? And I think that's the thing that sets you apart from society. Like, and I'm not saying that there's not other people that care, but it's that thing of like, your work is showing that I care about the story, I care about the context of what exists, versus just saying, hey, you had this action, or you need this support, or you need this service, and that being it. It's like, no, I care about the context. And that context, I think, is extremely important because now you can really identify how a person needs help or how you can help them grow. And if you don't have context and you're just putting one general mindset or mind frame way of thinking on a situation, it's like it doesn't grow. And so, I mean, you said it was a catalyst. Let's get into like birthing beautiful communities a bit and just that foundation of that. Like, what were some of the initial steps you took from turning that vision or this idea into reality?
And the funny thing is, I didn't even necessarily think about there being a agency. Like, I can't say that I necessarily envisioned Birthing Beautiful Communities actually becoming what it ended up becoming. Okay. It kind of was just like this step by step thing that gradually, as I was working with mothers, I started to see a need for certain things. So I just started building on that kernel. Okay. And then every time we, worked with more mothers, we like, oh, okay, this needs to happen too. And so then it would expand more and it would just, continue to expand as you started to see the need growing. Then I was like, okay, then, oh, this is actually turning into like a thing. Right? And so I always dream big, right? Like I'm always like, oh yeah, if I could like help and serve these many people, then I would love to do that, right? But sometimes we don't necessarily know like how that will come to us. It, for me, it came through by way of birth. I used to work with these nuns who were doulas. That's really how I got started because after I did my doula training, someone had reached out to me and was like, hey, there's some nuns working over in the Collinwood area who are doulas. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I connected with them and they were working with young pregnant moms who went to Collinwood. And I graduated from Collinwood. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is like right up my alley. So I started working with them. And I remember the one nun, she was like, and I still respect her to this day for her honesty. And she was like, we really want to serve the women. She was like, but she said, I think that maybe you'd be better to serve them because you could relate to them. They were young and they were black, and these was old white ladies. Okay. You know what I mean? But I used to tell her, I was like, thank you for keeping it real. I always appreciate, for keeping it real. And so that's kind of how I started on that. And so along the way, I started to say, okay, where are the other doulas at? Where are the other black doulas? Like I knew it was doulas here, and I had belonged to some collectives, but I was like, where are the black doulas at? I literally thought I was the only black doula in Cleveland. Like I went to all of these doula events and I never saw no black women. I'm like, where the black women at? But at the same time, I was also learning about infant mortality, right? And so I'm like, wow, like this is a real issue, And then so I was like, okay, well, what can we do? I'm a problem solver, right? And part of my healing is like, I'm a problem solver. What's the problem? Oh, okay, well, so let's take care of it. Let's figure it out. What's the solution? And so my solution to that was like, oh, okay, well, let's train some black women in black neighborhoods to become doulas and have those women serve the pregnant moms in their communities. And that's kind of how it started. After I had two clients at the time. One was 16 and one was 20. The 16-year-old was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And then the 20-year-old was experiencing a postpartum depression and anxiety. And as I got to know these women and I got to know their families, all I kept seeing was a pattern. It was a very clear generational pattern. The 16-year-old, she suffered from PTSD because she had been raped by her mother's boyfriend. And her mother had PTSD because she was raped by her mother's boyfriend. Wow. And the grandmother lived at the house with them, and the grandmother was disabled. She was blind. And then she had her story. And so my client was 16 and pregnant with a little girl. And all I could think was, if there is no intervention, that will be her story too. And it propelled me and motivated me to create something bigger that could provide support to women in all of these levels, but more in the connection and support of one another in this setting, that sisterhood. So sisterhood was like the foundation of Birthing Beautiful Communities.
I really love that. Now, how do you see the families, the teenagers, whether they're a 16-year-old girl with the story that you just shared or a 40-year-old woman, like how do you see them receive that support and connection? Because I know a lot of times, like, having a background of all of that trauma, and then someone coming in like, hey, I'm here to assist you or to serve you, essentially, it can kind of be some friction. So what are those experiences like when you going out to serve those families?
You know what? Honestly, we were well received. And I still can testify to say that I am still well received to this day, right? Like I just a couple weeks ago, BBC dropped the ball on a mom twice. That she had a doula. That doula wasn't working out for whatever. She was assigned another doula, and that doula just completely fell through. Didn't attend her birth, and when I heard about it or got word of it, because again, people inbox me all the time about how they're not receiving services from this organization. I just went out to her house. I went out to her house 6 days after the baby was born. Her and my partner, myself and my partner, the breastfeeding partner, we went out there and we just sat with her, worked with her, helped the baby latch. You know, it doesn't matter.
Are you seeing a lot of that? Like
a lot of it.
The ball.
After I left her house, I got another call and had to go out to a Hoosier hospital and help this family who's the doctors were not releasing the baby. She had just had twins. And the doctors were refusing to release the babies because she needed to go down to main campus because she was having some heart problems. And I got a call, and I went out there.
So how do you feel? How are you receiving? Like, how do you process these things to know? We talked a lot about, your beginning stages, the things you did, the fact that you had to go back and return to places that you left to build this organization. And so to now be in a space to where you're not the CEO of the organization, like you're not in there on paper as the CEO, and you're watching them drop the ball on something that you poured your all into, your blood, sweat, and tears into. How are you receiving that? How does that feel? How are you sitting with that?
Now I'm at peace because I put it in God's hands.
What was the initial feeling you said?
Initially, I was trying to ignore it. I'm gonna be honest, because I was like, I didn't want that to necessarily be true. I didn't want to believe that a person who I entrusted my baby to was abusing my baby. Sometimes we can be. I'm a human, right? Sometimes I was in denial a bit, like, wow, like that's really happening. She did what? What happened? Like, no, that's not. Please tell me that's not what's happening, right? And I was focusing on my own thing and doing, something else. And I didn't want to have to say anything or return, to that space to speak up. I'm like praying, like, God, please just, help them get it together,
Right.
But eventually it started to wear on my spirit to be like, no, that's not right. So I tried to, in many ways behind the scenes, rectify the situation, whether that was reaching out to her. I had reached out to the board.
Did you get responses?
No. Okay. No, the response they gave me was a cease and desist.
Okay. That's horrible. Like, that's so horrible. But what?
That's the response. Oh, we hear that the services are terrible, but we want to shut you up. Yeah, we don't want you to say anything about it.
So if you don't mind sharing, what are some of those complaints that you were receiving? Like, how are they dropping the ball? Like,
man. Doula's not showing up to births. I had some midwives reach out to me talking about how a doula fell asleep at one of the births. No in-person classes, which defeats the whole purpose of the work.
Okay.
Because the part of the work is the support and connections that they make amongst each other.
In-person classes for the parents,
or for the moms?
Oh, for the moms.
Okay. Yeah. The training has been reduced to nothing, because the person who was doing the training, my right hand, was forced out of the organization,
Accountability.
So, was forced out of the organization. So the person who was providing the upstanding, stellar 5-star training
Mm-hmm.
is no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So the people who were in place to be the pillars
Mm-hmm.
of the organization are no longer there.
And let me make sure I heard that correctly. The person who was in charge of providing these trainers was pushed out of the organization as well.
Yes.
Now, was this after you started to
This was
address
after
some
I
of these things?
left.
So this was like a retaliation type of thing. Like,
I mean, and I know that we'll get into like the more spiritual aspects of it, but this person who, like myself, is just, she's just a powerful person,
Mhm.
right? And so when somebody is threatened
Mhm.
by your power,
mm-hmm.
they want you out.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what happened. She was threatened by her power,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because she was my like right hand. She was,
Yeah.
she helped me, you know, build the organization, so she knew everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the reason why I didn't put her in that position versus who I did put in that position. But for me, it was that my staff would be able to stay in place because they are the only ones beside myself who actually know how to run the program, right? Yeah. Because they've been there from the beginning. So you intentionally trying to push them out says that you're ignorant. You're just ignorant, period. Mm-hmm. Because this is not about the mothers for you. This is about the money for you. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm mm-hmm. saying? And so there's nothing wrong with being about the mothers and the money. But you can't be about one and not the other necessarily, mm-hmm. right? Because you do need the money to be able to provide the level of services that you all are supposed to provide. Mm-hmm. And when mothers are not getting that, but you're still getting the money, that's an issue for me.
Yeah. And so I know just from watching the story and things like that, that you've attempted to address this with this person directly, right? How is that? Like, are you getting feedback? Are you getting any responses? Or is it still like...
No, I mean, but again, it goes back to this whole healing aspect, right? Or mm-hmm. lack thereof. Because you want to run away from yourself. You want to run away. You know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. even when I posted that, when I said, like, she ran, mm-hmm. it's not that you running away from me. You're running from yourself.
Yeah.
You're running from who you truly are.
Yeah.
Because who you truly are is so painful to you that you would rather ignore
that. Now, let's get into that. So, I think this goes into that spiritual aspect, right? You... had your and please walk the people through it, because like I know, because we just talked about it, but you had your own personal things going on. You stepped away from your organization for a while to take care of yourself. You entrusted this, I don't know the legalities of like name dropping and all of that, but you entrusted someone to be CEO of your company while mm-hmm. you were away, and they're essentially dropping this ball. And I think it would be safe to say the impact that you set out for Birth and Beautiful Communities to have is no longer having. So, like, walk us through that. Walk us through that journey. Walk us through, like, the spiritual portion of that. Why do you think this is taking place for you specifically? Mm-hmm. Like, why do you think you're experiencing this?
Oh, man. Thank you for that question. Prior to this situation, I was completely oblivious to the chaos that is over Cleveland.
Yeah?
I was oblivious.
You was in a bubble.
I was in a bubble. I was in a birth bubble, okay? Because in my world, everything was just blissful, right? Because I was working with mothers and babies and working to solve this issue, right? But I did get extremely frustrated with the nonprofit and philanthropy space, mm-hmm. right? As I started to evolve, mm-hmm. I started to see that, like, man, we are actually perpetuating the problems. Mm-hmm. We aren't fixing them. We aren't solving them, right? And so people don't want to hear that the work that they've done is not enough. You know what I'm saying? They get offended by that. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of essentially all I was saying was like, hey, this is great, but like, this is not enough. Yeah. And people get offended by that. Like, what do you mean this is not enough? This is what I'm doing. And it's no shade to anybody. It's
Right.
just saying like, oh, we probably can do this a better way.
Yeah.
But you know, people are resistant to that because they also know that in order for things to change, they have to change.
Yeah.
And so again, when you start to have that conversation with people, people like, oh, I ain't trying to look at myself.
I ain't the problem.
I ain't, you know, I'm not. But I've had to check myself so many times. I done died and been reborn 1,000 times in these last 3 years. You know what I mean? And not only that, but like, and this is my next book title. I keep on saying this. I was like, oh, I ain't even gonna say this out loud, but I am. Because what I did and have been doing, I have been healing out loud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're doing it by example.
Yeah, right? And so that makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? There are probably a lot of people who look at me like, Kristen had lost her mind, she crazy, I mean, that was the story that I was hearing that people were saying about me.
Really?
That I had some sort of mental health breakdown and that I was going crazy. But here's my thing, though. I challenged that when I said it. I said, I built this amazing, successful organization in this city that, you know, is meant to support mothers and babies. Yeah. I'm a mother, right? If y'all really think that I'm having a mental health crisis,
where's the support?
Where's the support?
Where's the support?
Nobody has even reached out to me.
Nobody knocked on my door, called my phone,
nobody.
Email, nothing.
So that's why I say y'all don't really think that I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all don't really
think that I'm crazy. Do you think it's a fear? Like, do you think people have a fear of speaking up here in Cleveland?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because once you cross that line, you are out there.
On your own.
By yourself.
You on your own.
You're on your own.
Yeah.
You know the number of people who be in my DM and say, oh, this is happening, Kristen, and this is that, and I'm like, well, say something.
Yeah. It gets so, and I think when I think of my own personal experiences and like, why didn't I say something? Mm-hmm. And I see, like, I admire you so much for opening up your mouth and being like, this is what's going on, and no, y'all not doing it. But when I think of my own personal experiences, it's kind of like, do I want to shake the table? Because I've been blackballed in spaces. Like, I've been blackballed in spaces and things of that nature. But it comes with shaking the table. And so, like, what advice would you give to someone who has to walk this line? Whether it's them being kicked out of their organization, whether it's them being wrong with partnerships or whatever the case may be and needing to speak up. Mm-hmm. It's like, what advice do you give when it comes to just speaking your piece or acknowledging or holding people accountable, essentially, is what's happening?
You have to be in such a solid place with God or the universe or Allah or whatever your higher power is. And it's the reason that I talk a lot about, like, divine advocacy. Mm-hmm. Is because you have to be unafraid. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And people will project that fear on you. They'll be like, oh, you can't do that. You know how many people I talked to before I actually went public with it?
Right.
I mean, before I went public with it, I talked to so many people and everybody was telling me like, oh, well, Kristen, you know, that's just how it is. Or they like, oh, well, Kristen, well, you know, you can't, you know, you got to be strategic. Somebody even told me that I needed to be strategic because they said, well, you don't want her to think that you're coming for her. I said,
I want you to know
I am coming for you.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I am coming for her. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why would I have to tiptoe around somebody I put in position?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
What was it like when you seen her in person? After announcing all of these things, after sending emails, after making phone calls, and then seeing her out in a public setting, what was that like? I'm assuming it was a public setting. But you mentioned
it was at the City Club.
Okay.
It was at the City Club.
Did she address it? Did it?
Oh, no. And what's so funny is this is how crazy all of this is, right? They knew I was coming because I bought the ticket in my name. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? This is how interconnected all of this, and I'm not even gonna necessarily call it corruption. I'm gonna call it disconnection. Mm-hmm. And when I say disconnection, I mean disconnection with yourself, with your source, with who you are foundationally, spiritually. This is how disconnected the city is and the people is in it, right? I bought the ticket in my name, so they knew that I was coming. The people at the City Club knew that I was coming, right? They know me, right? Because I've spoken at the City Club before, so I know the executive director. He saw my name because he was in my stories the night before too, right? Never been on my Instagram page ever before, but because people publicly know what's going on, he came to see, oh, what's up? And they probably asked him if I was on the list.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they protected her, so to speak. Another person came, a friend of mine, who had an adverse experience with BBC. Actually, that's how I even know her. I didn't even really know her before that. She had a premature baby. She got kicked out of the program, had a premature baby at 6 months pregnant.
Wow.
In that instance, guess who showed up to her house to help her after she brought the baby home?
Oh, wow.
Me.
You.
It
not,
was me.
Not BBC,
not them.
Not the people
it was
that
me.
It was supposed
right,
to be.
And I wasn't even with them.
So you talk about a disconnect. Let's talk about, like, where do you think is the disconnect within the organization? Is the disconnect in this leader and who she is? Like, where do you feel that disconnect lies?
I mean, she's completely disconnected from herself, right? But see, this was a part of my trauma and my healing, right? Is that I trusted unhealed people, right? That's how I got into my marriage. I trusted an unhealed person, right? And in this situation, I trusted an unhealed person because I wasn't healed myself, right? I was suffering from what I now, in hindsight, understand to be is codependency, right? And that's something that Black women struggle with a lot. It's a good reason for why we end up seeing so many of the issues that we have health-wise and just all around. It's because we have this codependency feeling of that we have to be the ones to take care of everything, save everybody, figure everything out for everybody, you know, have a lack of boundaries, poor boundaries. And I was in like my Jesus phase, so to speak, this bubble of bliss that I was saying, right? Where I'm seeing the good in everybody, right? So I'm even looking past your red flags, looking past certain things, because here I'm looking at the God in you. I see the God in you, and I'm like, oh, you'll be okay.
It's like dating potential.
Yeah, potential, right? That's what it is. Oh, you'll grow. You know. So, and that's kind of how I looked at that, right? With this person too. Like, okay, she'll grow into that role. She'll grow into that position. I didn't know what I was doing at first either, but I grew into that role, right? So here it is. I believe in you more than you believe in yourself, right?
Okay.
So then, which constantly puts me in a position of me having to check myself and heal those wounds, right? How did I become codependent? At what point in time in my life that I feel like I wasn't enough? That I felt like I had to do something? Why am I sabotaging myself, so to speak? You know what I mean?
So what did you see, like, what have you found to be solutions in that? We talk a lot about, you know, just healing, being disconnected, whether it's this leader of an organization or whether it's just the mind, like whomever it is. What does healing actually look like? What is those first, like, what are those first steps of taking that spiritual journey?
So I refer back to Mama Gwen. Do you know Gwen?
I know Gwendolyn Garth. Yes.
Gwendolyn Garth. So me and her talk a lot about spirituality, a lot, right? And so she always says this one line that gets me every time. She said, I asked God, what was the difference between me and Jesus? And she said, God said, Jesus knew who he was, and you keep forgetting. Blows me every time.
Yeah,
right?
Because so little says so much.
Man, and let me be very clear. I'm not religious at all. I don't belong to a religion. I think that religion serves its purpose for people, you know, who want the spiritual journey, who want to understand who they are at their core, and that's just one of the ways that people try to get there, right? The point, and to answer your question, is what's the first step in healing? Is the bigger picture is we have to remember who we are. You know what I'm saying? We have to remember and know that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We're spirit first. long after this body and this flesh is gone, we will still be spirit.
Which means we still live.
That will never change.
Yeah.
Right? That's our baseline.
Mm.
But we operate from this place where we think that we're humans first.
Mm-hmm.
We not, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I get it because it's our senses. We only are concerned really with what we can see through our senses. What we can see, we can touch, we can hear, we can feel. Like, I understand that. But that is not the all of our existence, right? And so when you understand that you are a spirit, then you understand that you have far more power than you give yourself credit for, right? Now, are we limited by our flesh? We are in certain ways. You can't just go and jump off a building and think you're going to land on your feet. That's just not a human capability.
Yeah.
Now, if you were a bird, right? A bird is also right. A bird is also a spiritual being, but having a bird experience.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So, does being human have its limitations? Yes, it does, right? However, in divine mind, we have everything that we will ever need in our lives. We don't lack anything. I was listening to Reverend Ike, and he was like, God has nothing else to give you.
You got it already.
You got it all.
You got it already. You just got to
nothing more. You are equipped.
That makes sense.
With it all, right? Your job is to, when you do pray, you ask for God to reveal these things to you. You ask God to help you remember who you are. You ask God to open your eyes and open your ears and open the channels, because it's already here. It's already done, right?
Do you think do you think misteachings or like lack of knowledge is a part of this?
Yes,
or like
it is, but are you willing to receive it? Right? I said it this morning. I said, I'm done talking to people who don't get it. That's the path of most resistance. The path of least resistance is talking to people who already get it, or talking to people who want to get it.
Because then you could just build onto those pieces that already
to people who are already looking for relief. You know, and that's the key word right there is relief. That's the first step in healing is you recognizing I want to feel better than what I do today.
And I want to make a change. Like, I want to experience something that's different. And so, like, I want to kind of circle back around to BBC and, like, it having its relief and it releasing the things that no longer serves it and things of that nature. Like, what does that look like for you and, like, what you're experiencing? Like, are you going back to get your baby, or is it a thing of I have to let this play out? Like,
I mean, it's a combination of both. I have to let it play out. I've done everything that I can do, and if God gives me another set of instructions to do something more, then I'll carry that out. Everything that I have done, I have been instructed spiritually to do. That may not make sense to people, and it don't have to make sense. It don't even have to make sense to people, because the other thing too is another step of healing you have to get there is not caring what other people think. That's a really big crutch for us, because we spend so much time. I knew I could risk my name, risk my reputation, risk everything that I've done and I built because I spoke up and spoke out. I will die a lot of things, but a coward won't be one of them.
No, I love
you know what I'm saying? A coward won't be one of them, because it takes courage to live this life. And not only that, I think what we also miss is that and I've said this before, and I've said 1,000 times, we are here on this earth as humans because we wanted to be here. It is hard to be born. It is very hard to be born. I don't think we really take that into context. A woman is born with 400,000 eggs. A man's sperm has to get to one of them eggs. And as soon as a woman's body receives sperm, her body immediately goes working to kill all the sperm that come in, because it's a foreign body to the female body. So the female body is like, what is it? Who are you? You don't belong here. I'm killing all of you.
Get out, not me.
Get out of it. And there was one sperm who was determined
Like, I'm gonna see through
to get there to that egg, because it can only take one. So this sperm was so intelligent. We are dealing with infinite intelligence, right? This sperm is so intelligent that it got past all of that and got to the egg and implanted, made it. That egg implanted itself to the wall of the uterus, but then the journey is still not over. That egg still has to implant and stay there. It has to travel through the fallopian tubes. It has to grow into a fetus. Not every egg that's fertilized makes it. You know what I'm saying? We call that an ectopic pregnancy. We sometimes call it a miscarriage. You can get all the way up to full term and still have a stillborn. It is hard to be born. It takes a lot to be born. So if you arrive here on this earth, it is a gift because you almost didn't make it. Okay? That's how precious life is. That's how infinitely intelligent our existence is. And so if you're here and you got here, you came here with purpose, right? And so this is why birth and that whole experience is precious to me. See, this is deep. This is deep. This is not surface. See, people look on the surface. I'm past the surface, right? Albert Einstein said you cannot solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created it. We have created these problems from this surface level. And we're trying to solve it from a surface level. We can't do that. We have to solve it from a deep level. That's the spiritual level. So what will happen with BBC? I have left that in the hands of the divine, right? I've done everything that I was meant to do, right? Will it change hands? Absolutely. 100%. She won't be there no more. That part I can guarantee that, right? Well, because it's spiritually, she doesn't align with the organization.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
So it's just
anything, this don't have to be. It ain't because I'd have been tipped off or somebody in my ear or something. No, it was inevitable. You're not aligned to the divinity that created this. So therefore, anything not in alignment is not sustainable.
So I was going to ask the question of if you could give Jasmine a piece of advice to better the organization, like what would it be? But it sounds like there is no advice.
Leave. That's the advice. Leave. Which is why when I wrote the letter at the end of it, I said I humbly accept your resignation. Because there is no future for you there. There's not.
And it's
over. And you can resist it, which is what she's doing. But it's okay. Because with resistance comes a tower. Exactly. You know what I'm saying?
So now it's just a timing thing.
It's just a matter of time.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of time.
So let's talk lessons.
And let me just also say this. I'm sorry. Let me just say this. I forgive Jasmine. I have a ton of compassion for her. Because what I actually see in her is a broken little girl who didn't get the love that she needed, who didn't get the attention that she needed, who didn't get the support that she needed, right? That's what I see in her. A broken person who's broken spiritually and is in a state of she doesn't like herself. You know what I'm saying?
Did you guys have a friendship prior to her coming on, or what was the relationship of?
No, I didn't know her like that. I met her through someone who I did consider a friend at the time, right? They were friends or are friends or whatever. And that's who I met her through. And she came in and, she was doing her thing. She knew how to raise money. That's why I put her in that position, knowing that the rest of my team would be there and be into place. And I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like when leadership come and you want to make your own changes. I'm not saying anything against that, but to try to force out the people who really the core and the crux of the organization, that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? One of the women who started with me from the very beginning, she's demoted her to an intake specialist. This is a person who's been here from the very beginning. You know what I'm saying? You wanted to bring in your own team. I get that, but y'all don't know what y'all doing. Y'all don't know. And when I say y'all don't know what y'all doing, I'm saying y'all don't have the heart for this work. You know what I'm saying?
What do you think it says about her character when it comes to how she's operating in this space with BBC and the workers, like the employees that are there? Like these are people who were there from the very beginning, which I would look at it like they would grow with the company, or they would, rise in the company, or even eventually maybe shares or something, like whatever it looks like for your organization. But to be working backwards, like, what is that saying about characteristics? Like,
she's a broken girl.
mm-hmm.
She's a broken, she is hurt. She has some really deep seated issues.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very, I feel, that's why I said, like, I feel an immense amount of compassion for her. As much as this has been happening and going on and what people think, see, I'm not a showy person in the sense where, like, oh, I'm trying to embarrass you and I'm going to check you and I'm going to do all of this. No. That wasn't even what any of that is about. Mm-hmm. This is a mirror. Girl, you need help. You know what I'm saying? Something is really happening and going on with you at a heart level. You have heart disease for real. And when I say heart disease, that's hurt, envy, anger, resentment, and trauma. You got heart disease. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody who is healthy would treat other people that way. Definitely. You don't have no reason. Only an unhealthy person would treat people in unhealthy ways.
That makes sense. So it sounds like that spiritual aspect that we talk about and that healing that needs to take place, it's like that needs to happen from the top on down. It's like you can't run an organization or be in this space and you're not healing yourself. Now, I know you talked about like being in a bubble prior to experiencing this stuff. So like, did you really not know that a lot of people in Cleveland were dealing with this heart disease? Or like, how did you stay away from like, what bubble were you in? Like, how did you get there? Like, I'm really curious because
again, I always have been on the side of just like seeing the good in people.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And what's funny is my sister, because my sister helped me build BBC. She live in Vegas now. And I used to always tell her, I was like, why is it that people act different around me? Because I always felt like people act a certain way with me and around me, and then they would like leave me and go back to their like chaotic, ratchet life, right? Yeah, but when they around me, they like, no, I'm happy and healing and growing and thriving, right?
Right.
And so I would see like this other side of people, right? And so my sister was like, she said, I don't think that it's people being fake with you. She said, I think that it's something about your presence and who you are that makes people want to be a better person when they're around you. And so when they're around you, that side of them comes out. But then when they leave you, they're just back to who they are, right? She was like, but that is who they are when they are at their best, when they're around you, you know, because you that type of person just bring that out of them. And so it took me a long time to embrace that part of myself and being a healer, right? Because that whole situation I was talking about when I had went to Hoosier, I didn't know those people at all.
Right.
And all it took was my presence. When I showed up, the doctors came in and was like, oh, we gonna release the babies.
Yeah. It's like, no, we're not even going down this road. But it's that energy
it's the energy, right? All I had to do was just show up. That family had been in the hospital for a week fighting the doctors.
Yeah.
I just showed up and I'm like, what's going on, whatever? I don't know. And they was like, okay, we gonna release the babies to the mother.
Yeah.
Like that, right? So, but we are afraid of who we are. I believe to some extent I was afraid of embracing myself as a healer. Like who I think I am.
Yeah.
Saying I'm a healer and going out here. But the moment we can accept who we are is when we can make the most impact. And so just to go back 1 second when you said that the person at the top has to heal or whatever, or of the organizations. It's the organizations, but it's also government, right? It's also the funders, the philanthropic organizations. You know what I mean? It's not this y'all need to heal, because that's essentially how funding works now. It's like, oh, we gonna give y'all this money so y'all can heal.
But it's not enough.
Y'all can heal.
It's not for the healing. What I've noticed, what I've noticed, and I don't think I really noticed it until after we did like the fund development plan. I went when I worked with you during that time. I had to take a step back afterwards to really say, and you touched on it earlier. It's difficult to look yourself in the mirror and say that's not enough, and it's like I had to look at my organization and say you did some great things, but it's not enough, and that's not the solution. Like that's not the solution. But working with you helped me identify I think a lot of those things of being able to say like you have to be more focused on the solution, but bringing it back around when it comes to funders, they're not funding the solution, they're funding the band-aids. And so, and I think this was a perfect leeway into the question that I was going to ask about lessons. Like, how does, as a leader, as a creative, as someone who's going out to help join you on this journey of healing, whatever it looks like for me or a viewer or anyone, it's like, how do we communicate that with the funders, or how do we say forget your funding because you're not working on the solution, and really stay solution based? Like, is that personal donations? Is that, people, like, what does that look like? Because as you said, the money does still have to be there, but the work equally has to be done.
I think it's on two sides. So I think that in the philanthropic community, though, they have to be willing to want to know, right, and understand how they can better serve it. It's the thing that I talked about where I'm like, I only want to work with people who get it and people who want to get it, right? Yeah. So the philanthropic organizations, they have to want to get it. They're not at a place where they get it, but they have to want to get it. The leadership, I actually just wrote this blog the other day, and the title of it is, Are Philanthropic Leaders Ready to Embark on the Spiritual Journey Required in Order to Truly Lead? Anybody can say that they're a leader. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But if you aren't leading through demonstration, your personal demonstration, see, these are people getting up and going to a job every day, right? And they have learned to separate their personal lives from their professional lives. But you are one person. You are who you show up to at work every day. That's who you are. But you aren't brave enough to show people who you are, right? And so that then becomes an issue of, oh, I'm coming to work to do this to help those people. You know what I'm saying?
Not anything for self.
Yeah, not I need help, or maybe it's me. Maybe I'm looking at this wrong. Maybe I could use the healing as well. Like, no, then we other people. No, we're gonna put the money there because they need the help. We don't need the help. They need the help, right? Then the other side of it is, yes, we can do individual donations, right? That's what the Sow 100 Seed campaign is all about, right? However, people have to be taught to be generous. They have to be taught the spiritual, emotional, mental, and even financial benefits of giving, of being generous, right? Because when you have a poverty mindset, and poverty mindset does not always mean physically poor, because you can have a poverty mindset and be monetarily rich, right? It's your conscious level and you're thinking about yourself, because there's two ways to make money. You can make money on a surface, right? Surface level. That's getting up, going to a job. You work at McDonald's, they give you a check every 2 weeks. That's surface, right? You got a job, they paying you, they give you money, right? The other way to make money is through spiritual manifestation, spiritual financial way, which is sustainable, right? Because that's you identifying your gifts, accepting what those gifts are, and then giving those gifts to the world, and the world gives back to you through monetary means. Whatever it is that you're putting out there, then you receive it because you're giving value, so you're getting money in exchange, right? And that's sustainable because that is built off of just who you are, period, right? Versus this job that you could perform here at, and so most people get their money off on the surface, right? And so then again, when you getting the money on the surface, you like, I'm out here getting money. I don't need no help. I'm doing well. I got the money, but be rotting on the inside. We just saw that we seeing that with Diddy right now. Right? Yeah. He done made all this surface money, but spiritually poor.
Exactly.
And when you spiritually poor, you'll eventually be physically poor.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Because it catches up with you.
Oh.
It's not something you can run from at the end of the day. And so that makes total sense. And so I think that like puts me in that space of how do we hold just in this space, like because with Diddy and all of those things, I can see where like society holding them accountable and things like that. But in this philanthropic space, how do we hold funders accountable for doing the work, for wanting to see that, for wanting, like, because right now we're just accepting it. Right now it's just like, oh, we can't get a grant, or they just fund such and such, or they just do this. And I speak loosely with that because I have been one of the people who have been able to get grants. But in hindsight, I also was connected to some not so great people who were connected in other spaces who made it easier to get some of those grants. Some of those we did work for, but some of those was like, I can in hindsight see this was a click thing. So again, how do we hold funders accountable to say, do the work, or at least come out and see what you're funding, and not just like a camera op type thing, a photo op type of thing, but really know what you're funding, making sure you're funding a solution, making sure you're not just putting a band-aid. What does that accountability piece look like? How do we, as people who are receiving that funding, look back up to them and say, hey, I need you to do a little bit more than just cut me a check?
Tell the truth, shame the devil. I mean, the biggest thing is that we don't say nothing. We don't say nothing, or even banding together to say something to make the collective voices heard and more powerful. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look, even this situation with BBC, like I said, the number of women who have been in my inbox talking about all of the lateral violence, the clique, the mean girls, the the lack of services, how they've been shut out of opportunities and all of this stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm first time I'm hearing this. It's coming from me. You know what I'm saying? Where nobody is saying anything. You know what I'm saying? So we have to speak up. That's the whole point of divine advocacy. You have to speak up and amplify your voice. Shout it to the rooftops. Write the letters. Write the emails. Post on social media. Flood their inboxes. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to say something. There has been nothing in my life that I have accomplished that didn't require me to speak up. Period. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Even building BBC, somebody had to speak up to say, hey, doulas could be a solution to this. If I didn't say that, but see, I had to be a doula first. Yeah. I had to lead by example, by demonstration, right? Nobody was talking about doulas in this city. Nobody even knew what a doula was in this city. I used to spend all my time spelling the word doula and defining it for people because people had never even heard of it here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So when I did the rec center in East Cleveland, I had to speak up about that. That center was looking trash for at least 30 or 40 years. You know what I'm saying? Until I said something about it. Yeah. Now it's completely renovated. You know what I'm saying? I had an incident with Thurgood Marshall Recreation Center when they didn't have no heat in the gym and told me it had been like that for 3 years. I had to speak up about it. The city came out in 2 weeks to fix that. Yeah. The heat that had been off for 3 years. We don't speak up about things. We don't say anything. And then this is what we'll do as black people, right? We'll see something happen in a suburban community where it's white folks at, and it will be like, oh, well, if that had happened here, then it wouldn't have got done. It wouldn't have got done because we don't say shit. You know what I'm saying? And they do because they know their worth. Yeah. They know their worth. I see how this all goes full circle, going back to really knowing yourself, and it all does. It all essentially is spiritual, because you only don't speak up for yourself when you feel you lack value, or you don't know who you are, you don't know what you deserve, and things of that nature. But when you know, and you won't accept anything less than that. But knowing comes with walking that line, with going on the journey, with healing yourself, with knowing your values and everything else that comes with that. So I definitely see how it goes off full circle. And so, like, you have this like personal resilience, like you've been through a lot of shit throughout this journey of building BBC and just unlearning and relearning yourself. Like,
I know you've spoken openly about experiences with your mother, and congratulations. I hear y'all recently,
Yeah,
I
we
spread that
did.
y'all
Thank
recently
you.
spoke. How do you keep it going, and what advice would you give to someone else to keep it going and to stay in that space?
It's not easy. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
No, it's not easy. I mean, I know that, there is. Hey.
In real time. It could be a real time thing. It's not just at your.
I wasn't trying to interrupt y'all, but he was in the back, so I
You
had
fine. Can you close that door though for me? Thank you.
Hey, I want to hug
Y'all
you.
can hug. I was gonna say it's a real time. It's okay. You're fine. I told you real
How
live
you
production.
feeling? You okay?
I'm good. How you
doing?
I'm sitting upstairs. I got an important question.
Yeah, no. Yeah, but that piece.
I mean, it's not easy, but I'm strong. You know what I'm saying? And you know, shit, like it say in the Bible, shit, when you feel weak, you say I am strong. You know what I'm saying? And it goes back to just, here's the thing, like, this is actually really not that complicated, right? It's really kind of black and white, but we make it complicated because that's what we do as humans, right?
Yeah.
Like we make things complicated, and that's why I say, like, yeah, when you weak, you say I am strong. And throughout this, I have to get up every day and say I am strong. You know what I'm saying? Period. Be brave, because I know who I am. I know who my creator is. I know who my source is. And so no one can project this fear on me. You can't bully me into not speaking up. You can't send me a cease and desist and think like, oh, she's gotta be quiet. No, I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Because before I started this journey, I was told that no weapon formed against me should prosper. You know what I'm saying? But it also it depends on if you believe it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I believe that. And past believing something is knowing. I know that. Not only do I believe it, but I know it. You know what I'm saying? It's been shown to me. When you think about all of the times in your life, you still here, you still standing. Think about all of the experiences that you have had in your life, all of the things that you thought that you was not going to get through, and look at you right here, then got through them, right? So there is something beyond you that is keeping you in this space of like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be motivated. I don't care how many times I was told no. I don't care how many times I was rejected. I don't care how many times this door closed. I'm still standing, and I'm still gonna go, and I'm gonna figure it out, and I trust and I believe that you, and I know that this is that I will prevail, or this will happen, or whatever. And that's what it is. And we have to sometimes forget the outer appearance. Because the outer appearance can trip us up, right?
Yeah.
And we look at our bank account, you be like, dang!
Like, wait, it's only
help
$2
on the way.
And I love that because you said this before about, you wrote a song about this, actually. The $25, like, only having $25. But it's so, something so little can be so large, because I get it, like where you saying, like, you have to speak this, you have to know this and believe it. But what do some of those actions look like for you? Like, I see you go on walks, I see you say, make the raps to say, like, hey, this gonna be it. But what are some of those actions that go along with these affirmations that you tell yourself to keep that resilience?
Man, and you know what? This is actually timely because I fasted. What was that, yesterday? I think for the last like couple days. So when sometimes it'll just come over me, and I have to get to a place where I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna fast. I'm gonna give up whatever I need to give up in order to get closer to myself and to spirit. So fasting, praying, meditating. And I know these are all things where people like, oh,
it sounds cliche to the outside, but I think it's on what depends on what level. Like we talked about that, and you said it, like people be at different levels.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's it. Like where you talked about who the most resistant and things of that nature. So I think people who are having difficulty receiving it, they're just not on that level, or they don't have the desire to.
Yeah, and they're looking for something immediate. Like an immediate relief and fix, because that's what we have been accustomed to, and it's very popcorn ready right now, society. But here's the thing, though. The thing is, even with miracles and stuff like that, can change. God can change your situation overnight, right? Like we've literally seen that happen, And let me be clear, like I said, every step that I have made, it has been in consultation with a higher power,
Yeah.
with the divine. Okay, I only spoke out. I had been suppressing this for, I told you, 2 years.
Yeah.
I had been 2.5 years. Let me be clear. I hadn't said anything.
Right.
I hadn't said anything about it. And these people have been making rumors, talking about my ex-husband and the stuff that he had going on legally, trying to spread my business, lying on me.
Right.
I hadn't even said anything.
Right.
I had not said anything. I had just went to the back and did what I had to do. So when I finally made the decision to say something, it was only because I got sick.
Mm-hmm.
I got real sick for like 2 months, where I was kind of like bedridden sick, like couldn't take, I had to Uber my son to school. I was sick, couldn't even get out the bed, sick. And after that, it became really clear to me. And when I tell you, one day I just sat on the bed and I had surrendered.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing right there. Talk about step on this healing journey. You gotta surrender. You have to surrender.
What does that look
You
like?
have to
Surrendering
surrender.
is difficult though. Like,
It
especially
is.
when people want to have control. And like,
You don't have control.
I know. So wait a second. Let's talk about it. I know that I don't have control, but then will still desire to control whatever
Yeah.
the outcome is, even though like I really do know and I really do understand that I don't have control over the outcome of any situation.
Mhm.
But surrendering is difficult. What does that
It
look
is.
like? Or what?
Detachment. I'm gonna say this.
You're
Sometimes it
using
takes
words
us
I
to.
don't like.
Yeah, I know. It's words none of us like.
Yeah.
It's words none of us like. You know what's so funny is that I think about this like, this is all metaphysics, right?
Uh-huh.
This is or hermetic. You know what I'm saying? But the basis of all of this is metaphysics. The basis of our existence in this world is metaphysics. And what's interesting to me is like all of the metaphysical sort of leaders over time, I would say even recent times, none of those people are black, right? And black people have a hard time listening to anything that somebody is saying who is not black, right?
Okay.
We are less inclined to receive the message if it's coming from somebody who don't look like us. That's the point, right?
Okay.
And that is a problem because we won't listen to what Abraham Hicks is saying and what Neville Goddard and what Eckhart Tolle is saying. It's a whole list of them. But we not listening to what they saying. And I'm not saying you should. I'm saying if you want relief and you want, so I said, well, God, are you pushing me to become a black metaphysics leader?
And it had nothing to do with color.
It don't got nothing to do with color. It doesn't. That's the funny thing. It don't have anything. Race is very surface level, right? But we are so caught up in that right now. We're so caught up in it. Like beyond, it's blinding us. That's how foundations are making their decisions now. That whole decolonizing wealth project, I follow that guy. And his philosophy really is just built around how black people have been deprived of, or people of color have been deprived of money and stuff for years. And that's true. All of that is true. But his solution is, go give black people a bunch of money. And that is not the solution.
It's not, because without the money, and this kind of goes back to what we talked about, where you have to do the money and the work. So I think that the money without the knowledge or the strategy or any of that, you're going to just lose the money.
Right.
You can't maintain
personal
it.
work, though. The soul level work. And what I'm describing really as soul therapy. Right? Because look at this. Mackenzie Scott gave Birth to Beautiful Communities $2 million without her knowing what is going on. So you funded this organization because they black, but it's not even doing what it was designed to do.
But I think that goes back to where we were just trying to unpack that thing of like, what is the solution? How do we go up and hold those people accountable? Because that just goes to show that this is someone else who didn't do the due diligence of really understanding the organization or understanding what's going on, or the fact that y'all dropping the ball. So now it's essentially exactly the same thing.
It's
more
the same
money
thing.
without the work being done, whether it's on a spiritual level or just physically being done. So the work isn't being done, the money's been given, there's still no accountability. So and we can't go undo it. She's not going to go back and uncut the check. But that opens up the door to say, oh, well, Mackenzie did it, so now other people will do
They're
it.
going to do
but
it. Melinda Gates, she about to give $2 billion to women organizations and stuff like that. So it is. So what we're gonna now see is we're gonna give Black people all of these resources, and nothing will change. Nothing will change. It'll get worse. It actually will get worse, right? So we can, the whole reparations conversation, we give every single last Black person on this in this country $1 million, and it still won't change nothing. It won't. It won't change anything. We don't have a money problem. We have a heart problem. We have a heart problem.
And that goes back to what you said. And so that brings me to the question of what's next for Christian? What's next when it comes to solving these heart problems? What's next, both professionally and personal for you? You shedded a lot of skin over these last few years, and I think these experiences are also helping you shed a lot of dead weight and dead skin. And so knowing that you don't control the outcome, but you do have your desires and things that you want to see, what's next?
Well, here's the thing, the interesting thing. The reason why we don't have to control it is because it's gonna happen. It's just not going to necessarily happen in a way that you think it should happen, right? We get caught up on the how, and that's not our business. The how is not our business. That's God's business. And stay out of God's business and focus on, you know, moving forward and your heart. So you always get what you want. You always get your desired outcome. What's next for me, and I'm doing this now, is I'm healing, and I'm doing this through, I'm teaching, and I'm coaching, I'm consulting, and I'm writing. You know what I mean? I love to write. I've been just really honing in on me writing and writing more, right? Because, you know, I want to spread the gospel. I want to spread the good news. That's what it is. Gospel is the good news, right? Is that we don't have to live in this sea of suffering. We don't have to live like this. I feel a lot of ways that I'm on the path to really elevating myself as one of those maybe metaphysics sort of leaders and teachers, because I happen to have a Black face and I happen to be a woman, you know what I mean, that there has to be somebody who looked like us that's talking about this on a mainstream level, or else we won't receive it, right? We look at the white people in media and be like, we ain't listening to nothing they talking about, right? Even though what they're talking about, these particular people who I'm talking about, the only other, and the person I respect the most, which I already brought his name up, is Reverend Ike, because that's what Reverend Ike was doing in the 70s. Like, he literally was a freaking pioneer in metaphysics to Black people, because he built a church in New York, a big church in New York. And I mean, it was filled from wall to wall, you know, every Sunday, because he finally was taking Black people out of this state of victimhood and suffering. That's like the only Black person, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, that's the only Black person I know that did that on that level, metaphysics wise. Is there anybody else y'all can think of? I can't think of nobody else.
And I think
I went to research. I was like, who? Iyanla Vanzant she's kind of doing that too. That's kind of what she's doing. That's what she talked about. It's kind of, but it's not. The difference is, and what I love about Reverend Ike is that he actually references the Bible, and he uses a lot of the biblical scriptures to make these metaphysical points, because the Bible is not. It's not very literal. I know we think it's literal, but it's not really literal. It's figurative, and the Bible is just giving all of these stories and examples of what it means. It follows the Hermetic principles, you know, basically the Kabbalion. I mean, these is all things that contribute to soul therapy, you know, contributes to that healing part, the heart part that we have to get to. And so my job, I feel like, is to figure out what ways and platforms in which to get that out there, that message out there.
No, that makes a whole lot of sense, and I'm excited to see you do that, because I think that is going to change the trajectory of not just the moms that you're serving and, you know, that are connected, but other thought leaders, other people who are not paying attention. Because I see that even though it's the people we're serving, we're also the problem, like as leaders.
Mhm.
Because if you don't, and we've talked about this on and off the camera, but it's that thing of not doing the work and not knowing where to start, I think is a
Mhm.
thing. And so I can see that impact that it'll have if you just have a starting point. And so that brings me to that question of that starting point. No matter which level I'm on, if I'm that person that is up here and I have the notoriety and I can't help spread the message and spread what it is that you're spreading, or if I'm all the way down here and I don't quite get it yet,
Mhm.
but I know something needs to shift because this $2 in my bank account ain't working. Like, where's that start? Where's that start? Do they follow you? Do they?
So I'm glad you said that's a big question for me too. So when I go home, that's all I'm about to do is write down this stuff. Um, yes, follow me, read my stuff, my KristenFarmer.com. You know, read my blogs. I'm talking about all of this stuff. I wrote this article talking about I think I just called it the divine nature of intellectual property, where I talk about how when you create something, how you co-create it with the source and you co-creating it with the divine. So intellectual property is a very intimate process. You know what I'm saying? So when you're talking about birthing beautiful communities and somebody taking my shit and trying to and doing whatever they want with it, girl, this is my intellectual property. This is the thing that I co-created with God. I will be on your ass.
Yes, like you just said with the kid.
You know what I'm
just
saying?
Like
It's
like
my
I'm
kid.
coming to see you about mine.
This is intimate. This was intimate. This process that I had to go through in order to develop these models and these programs and how this was gonna work and this is my
trial and error. Like I had to fail a lot of times to even get to where you see, to even put you in
that position. You have to know how disrespectful of not me, but of God. How disrespectful is that to God? So I'm not worried about. Don't be worried about me.
Right. I'm not.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not. You think I'm your problem and I'm not. The divine is your problem. You feel me?
Yeah.
Because that ass whooping is something that I couldn't bear to give. I couldn't even give it to you.
Yeah.
If I gave it to you, it wouldn't be nowhere near.
Yeah, he really gonna put belt to ass behind you because it's he gonna do that in real life though. Because no, that's what it is though. Because it's like you dedicated your time to this. It's like you just said, it takes a lot for a child to be born.
Yes.
So if this sperm chose my special egg, like, and it has to go through all of this, and I had to carry this for 9 months, you think I'm gonna come and let you harm it? And so I love.
You ain't worried about me, girl.
Yeah.
I'm small fries.
Yeah.
I'm small fries.
I love your attitude and your approach to it. Like I love your attitude. And I'm sure there were a lot of like behind the scenes intimate moments that you had where you like probably really did want to act out of character. You get what I'm saying? I can only imagine or did. Like I can only imagine or did. But the stance you taking now, I love it. So tell people, like, you have a petition going on right now. How?
Yeah. I think I still got it up. I kind of like I let it go.
It don't matter.
I did. I let it go.
Okay.
Because like I told you how I got sick. That was the divine edging me to do what I needed to do. I only got sick because I wasn't speaking up and I was supposed to. So much so that the day after I put it out there publicly, 90% of my symptoms went away. Like that. I have been battling this for 2 months. Nobody could even tell me what it is. I went to the doctor. I was at the doctor every single week for 8 weeks.
So you know it was something spiritual.
It was spiritual. It was spiritual. I don't know how many times I was in an emergency room, how many times they sent me to physical therapy. They took so many labs. They did this, they did that. They like, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And I was like, that's not it. That's not it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It wasn't. This is a super quick story, but this is the turning point for me. I woke up one morning. I had a doctor's appointment. I leaned over because I couldn't even really eat nothing. So I was eating like almonds, right? And this bag of almonds was next to my bed. And I got up and I went down like this. Tell me why the edge of the almond bag cut my eyeball. What's the odds of that?
How?
Right. What is the odds of something like
You
that
ain't see it,
happening?
Jeremy.
Right.
Like,
So I'm like, dang. So I go to the hospital. I go to my doctor's appointment. I done forgot about my eye being cut because I'm dealing with 20 other symptoms that I'm there to tell her about. So I forgot to even mention my eyeball. Right? I know, how is that, right? And so, but something struck me. Because I was having all these issues like on my neck, like on my left side. And so she asked me randomly, she said, have you ever had any problems like with your neck or your neck being like suppressed or something? And I just started crying. Out of nowhere, I just started crying. And I was like, and I was saying to myself, I'm like, why am I crying right now? And I said, then I realized I said it out loud. I said, my ex-husband choked me out twice. And that was the first time I had ever said that out loud. Like, I had never said that out loud. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to understand the position that I was in. I couldn't tell nobody what I was going through. You know what I'm saying? And it released something in me, like when I said it out loud. When I came back home, and after I went to the doctor the second time, urgent care, because for my eye, the second time I ended up going to the hospital twice in that same day. But when I got back home, this is the point of surrender. And I sat on the edge of my bed, and I was like, and I just went like this, and I'm like, God, what you want me to see? Like, what am I not seeing? And in that moment, something came over me and was like, you need to have a conversation with her. And that's all I heard was like, oh, you need to have a conversation with her. This was the day before Thanksgiving. The day of Thanksgiving, Mama Gwen come over to my house. And I say to her, I said, Mama Gwen, I said, I think it's time for me to say something. I said, our spirit came over me and told me it's time to have a conversation. And then Miss Gwen started telling me about this story when she had to confront somebody and how she wrote them an email. And when she said it, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. I said, because you can get everything out. Because you know that when you confront people and when they're cowards, they're going to deny everything.
Yeah,
so
and you go a lot of places. Yeah, emotional.
So it'd be like stuff that you be wanting to say that you don't say because they done denied it and they lying, they saying it ain't this and that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even want to go through that. I don't want to give her the opportunity to not to try to divert from what I'm saying. So I'm like, let me write everything out in an email. And so that's what I did. And I sent that out to her. And I knew she wasn't going to respond. I knew she wasn't going to respond. But after I put it out on social media, which was a few days later, 90% of my symptoms went away the next day.
Wow. Okay, so that's the context to that 90% of that going. And that goes back to just showing like, when you don't when you're not intentional about sitting yourself down and hearing and executing the things of that nature, like spirit gonna sit you down. You're not gonna have a choice. Like, and that goes back to release and control. And that all makes sense. Now, you spoke on something that I kind of want to dive into, and I've heard you like speak on it, but I've never heard you say that portion. You spoke about like your ex-husband choking you out of things, and we don't have to necessarily get into that, but are these, or I guess I do want to get into that, like, what was that experience like, and is that something that you were experiencing that made you step away from BBC in the first place?
It was one of the things that I was experiencing that made me step away. The other part of what I was experiencing, which pretty much overshadows everything, which is that I just felt the disconnect. It was like
in the organization, with the organization.
No, all of philanthropy, and nonprofit, period, right? And with the organization too, because so here's the thing, and this made me cry earlier this week when I was on my walk. It was like a profound, like, man, it was like a profound epiphany, and I love mothers and babies this much. This is how much I love mothers and babies, so much that I was willing to give up my organization to find out what's really killing them. I was willing to sacrifice my organization in the same way that God sacrificed his only son. We know this biblical context, right? In the same way, I gave up my organization in order for me to go find out what was really happening. Because there was a disconnect that I was feeling. It was me feeling like, oh, this is great with the doulas, but something else is happening. And I need to go find out what that other thing is that's happening. Because is not just infant mortality. Infant mortality is just one symptom of a much larger problem. Because why do we got lead poisoning? And why do we got, all of this crime and violence? And why do we got foster kids over here? And why do we got, it's all of these problems, right? Now, could I have stayed there comfortably making 6 figures and living my life and being able to pay my bills? Sure. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough because this life is not about what we can get out of it. It's about what others. It's about service. And John Henrik Clarke, this was his quote when he said it. He said, our payment for being on earth is in the service that we give to others. That's what we are here to do. Now, you serve others in a way that's valuable, then the return of that is in monetary resources or however you receive that. So my marriage was one of he was just, we all are being used. All of us. He was just being used. I had to know what Black women was experiencing for real from partners. That's what he taught me. I had never had a man put their hands on me before, ever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He treated me, talked to me in ways that I'd never experienced before. So I didn't know what Black women was experiencing when it came to men, right? I would have never known that had I went through that experience. Just like I told you, I would have never known about all this cliquey lateral violence stuff had I not gone. So even he was being used to show me, so that helped me understand what women were going through. Why would I attract a person like that? You know what I'm saying? Worst person I ever been with. Why would I attract a person like that? Right? I attracted him because at the time I wasn't feeling too good about myself either, because I was fighting with my family. I had all this drama going on over here in nonprofit and philanthropy and all of this stuff that was happening, and I felt depleted, completely depleted, right? So then here come this person coming into my life like, oh, I want to be all about you. Oh, what you do? Okay, I got you. I'm gonna do everything for you. I'm gonna run your bath water. I'm gonna rub you down every day. I'm gonna take care of you. Don't nobody take care of you. I'm gonna take care of you. I'm like, oh yeah, I like that. I need that.
Right.
Come on in here.
Right. Like,
let me marry you. Yeah.
You sold me a damn dream. Why would you do that?
Right.
No.
And so then I didn't know that women experienced being with men who was jealous of them. You know what I'm saying?
It's a thing.
It's a thing, right? These are all things that I would not have known had I not experienced that myself. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm getting to a place where I'm like, God, I see you and I feel you. I don't got to experience it. You can just tell me about it. Show me in some other ways so I can help people. But I understand why I had to go through that experience.
Do you think something is being birthed out of those experiences?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yes. And helping women specifically to see their worth. So if I could paint a picture, and I actually did write this down, this model. So if I could paint a picture, at the core, this is around our consciousness level and advancing our consciousness level. So it's like we're at this consciousness level right here. And then our level of consciousness, and if you ever seen the diagram of consciousness, it's a diagram of consciousness, right? Where the top consciousness is enlightenment, all right? That's the highest level you can reach on earth is enlightenment. And that's a frequency of like 700 or something, right? The lowest frequency is shame, and that's at like a 20, right? So we all are at these different levels of our consciousness, right? And so our level of consciousness, you pulling it up?
Yeah.
Let me see. Go consciousness and what's his name?
Is it any of these?
I think I know the chart you're talking about.
Or just put in consciousness chart.
Okay.
And it is
I just wanted a visual of
here, this one right here.
This right
Map
now.
of consciousness.
Okay.
So that's our levels of consciousness, right? And so from our levels of our level of consciousness, wherever we are, our self-image comes from wherever we are. So if you are at shame,
Mm-hmm.
right, at the lowest level,
Mm-hmm.
that is what you think of yourself.
Okay.
That's the concept that you have of yourself.
So these other words that I'm seeing, like humiliation, miserable, despising, elimination, these are some things you will be experiencing based on you being at this level of shame. Okay, I can see that. And then I see this thing where it says the paradigm, and I think this goes back to what you were saying about not receiving things from other people. But when we talk about the paradigm shift and like I can think of his name, but the author of that program and things of that nature, most people who look like us wouldn't. They don't want to take heed to it, or they don't want to receive the information. It's like, what does this old white man have to say to me, or how is what he's saying even make sense? But even just looking at this chart, it's like, so it's safe to say your goal is to get people to this goal of enlightenment, to where you know
at least here, at least the spiritual paradigm, somewhere in here, right? These are good places to be, but this is ultimately where we want to be. I feel like I'm at this place right here between love and joy. Well, I would say even peace. Actually, maybe I done elevated to peace because I said that this morning on my walk. I was like, yeah, it's just peace for me. But wherever we are on this chart, our level of consciousness determines how we see ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, right? And so how we think about ourselves or feel about ourselves, if it's in these places, then it's low and it's negative. And so then we have a negative self-image of ourselves. And so a negative self-image then creates low self-esteem, low confidence, a poverty mindset. And so then that creates poor decision making, right? So our poor decision making then comes to our partners, who we choose as partners, right? How we show up in the world, right? And those things all come from adverse childhood experiences. So it's a cycle. Then it loops. If there's no intervention at this level, at the adverse childhood experience level, it loops back around and finds us at whatever level of consciousness that we haven't, because we haven't healed. And so we find ourselves here, and it's just a repeating cycle and a repeating loop.
And it goes down to our children. So kind of like the example that you gave with the 16-year-old, it's like, it's that trauma experience. So what I hear you saying is, it's this thing of like, we come into this world, we choose to come into this world, we get here, we go through our journey, experiences happen. Trauma is built throughout this time. Most likely, like, trauma is built throughout this time, and it's our job to be able to gauge, experience, or essentially we're supposed to have a support system that intervenes as these life experiences happen for us. Not all the time do we have those support systems, which is where something like BBC would come in, or originally that's what it was designed for, to come in and to be able to be that support system throughout this time. And it sounds like as you've been building and transitioning, not just through BBC, but just on your own journey, you've been able to identify, hey, the real issue isn't not just having a support system. The issue is where we lie, not dealing with those childhood traumas, not having the support there as we experience those things. And now the whole goal with that is identify those traumas, heal from those traumas, and raise our level and get to this space of enlightenment, peace, joy, so that you can go out and serve the world in a better way. You can go out and be a servant. You can go out and plant the seeds that essentially need to be grown.
Absolutely. Yeah, you just described it.
So that's it. I just wanted to make sure. Listen, so because if they weren't getting it, I needed to make sure that I bring it full circle for them. No, I love it. Like, Christian, I think this has been an amazing conversation, and I really want to just dive into that space of like advice, like anything maybe you just didn't get off your chest, maybe something we didn't address, maybe it was any of those things. Like, what would you tell people? What advice would you give someone who is experiencing the Christian experience in their own way?
So this is what I would say. The truth is, on a spiritual level, metaphysical level, we are shifting into a new paradigm. We are shifting into a paradigm where we have to lead from our hearts. It's no longer going to be the old paradigm is ego focused and ego driven. That's the surface part. But we are shifting into a timeline where our hearts are going to have to go out first, because there's been so much chaos and strife and war and famine and all of these things for centuries, for thousands and thousands, for thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? That energetically, which is the same as spiritually, energetically things have to change. The earth is no longer going to continue to sustain in the way that we have been conditioned to run our earth or our ways in the past. Like, do that make sense? I don't know when I start to talk about those
I'm following.
things,
I'm following.
like, yeah, so
always don't work.
it
This
has
shit gotta
to.
happen.
Yeah, it has to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we are seeing right now is a resistance to that happening, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it has to go in that way because we are positioned to elevate higher. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a cycle. I always tell people this too. Like, you know, I say this, and this is probably not the most politically correct thing to say, but I touched on like suicide earlier. And here's the truth: we can't escape ourselves. We can't escape ourselves. You can kill yourself, but you gonna come back, and you gonna still have to learn that lesson. And you can't escape it. So deal with the shit in this lifetime, because you gonna have to deal with it in the next. You can't escape yourself, and that's what we are constantly trying to do. We are constantly trying to escape ourselves. I'm gonna give you an example of that too, because I'm currently going through this with my father. Right? I watched this TikTok video and it said, "Tell all the men in your life who love you to buy you flowers for Valentine's Day." So I did that. I got flowers from my son, from my friends, some of my male friends, and I told my father to give me some flowers. He never gave me any flowers, right? So months later, I say to him, I'm like, yeah, so you still ain't got those flowers for Valentine's Day. It's been 3-4 months, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. So every time I've seen him, I'm like, where's my flowers? Until I eventually told him, like, well, you can't come back over my house till you got my flowers, right? So my grandmother, his mother used to be a florist. So he actually knows how to do like flowers and spreads and all this. So he like, I'm gonna get you this big old bouquet and I'm gonna do all of this with it. And I'm like, you don't have to do that. Just give me the flowers. That's it. You can case Western Reserve, you got a bunch of flowers out there. Like,
you take some flowers. You know
what I'm saying? Like,
plant things. Yeah. I love it.
So he says, so anyway, I saw him a couple weeks ago at one of our family friends passed away at the funeral. So I saw him, and you could tell that he was uncomfortable because now every time he sees me, he's thinking about the flowers that he still hasn't given me, right? Now this is just a level of accountability, right? You got one job, you got one kid. I'm his only child. I'm a girl. I'm like, give me the flowers. Still ain't got me the flowers. I wrote a piece the other day that said, some would rather die than grow. Some people would rather die than to grow, right? He was telling my son and I one day in the car how a friend of his asked him, well, what you gonna do with the rest of your life, man? What you got, He says, man, those some hard questions to be asking a man. I didn't, whatever. He like, if I died today, my grandson and my daughter, if I died today, I'll be cool. And I said to him, no, you want to die to escape accountability. Wow. You want to die to evade responsibility for your life. You would rather die than take responsibility for your life and your future. And your mind is easier than your decisions and the decisions that you've made. That's true, right? You would rather check out than to just take care of your business. That's the problem. That's how people feel, right? So me holding him accountable for these flowers, because nobody in his life has ever held him accountable. He's been able to evade responsibility and accountability, except when he went to jail, which is because he was forced to, right? But I wrote this piece where I'm saying, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna briefly read it because it's short. But it inspired me to write this piece, and I said,
Is this on the website or is this on Medium? Do you still write on Medium?
I do still write on Medium.
Okay.
I just wrote on Medium, but I'm about to put this on my website. I haven't put it up there yet.
Okay.
But it's real quick. It says, some would rather die than grow. To live is to grow. Our existence is hinged on our willingness to expand our consciousness. This expansion hurts, is loud, direct, in our faces, and painful. There are some of us on this planet who rather not experience the pain of growth, but would rather cease to exist entirely. What would make someone so uncomfortable or unwilling to grow? If that answer is self hatred, and I don't know that it is, but if it were, what would make someone hate themselves so much that they rather not exist? Is it in the value of existing, the value of life? Do they not value life? Why would someone not value life? Do they feel undeserving, like they have nothing to offer it, so they don't deserve to have it in return? Do they feel there's nothing unique or special about them, and so they believe they don't deserve to live? It's These are just questions that I have. I'm asking these questions, right? What is it about you that makes you feel like your life isn't worthy of living? You know?
I think those were all great questions, and I think it goes back into us really breaking down like people people not knowing, and that's on every level, like not knowing who they are, not knowing what they're grounded to, not knowing their gift, not knowing how to get through what they've experienced. Like, I think there's levels to each of those questions, but I think it's also something that makes people sit back and sit with themselves to say, like, you know, what have I experienced? What have I been through? How has it shaped me as a person? Like, I'm always saying, like, you should self-analyze. You should take those moments and self-reflect and really be able to pull information to know where you've been, where you at, and where you're looking to go. And so with that piece, with those questions that you're asking, I think that there is that knowing piece, but there's that piece of holding people accountable to sit down with themselves and ask the hard questions. What have you experienced? What have you not healed from? What work do you still have to do? And what do you need to get it done so that you can go out and get it? Whether it's that support, whether it's information, whether it's being more spiritually grounded, whatever it may be. But I think and you said this, like, we're in this time where we have to sit with it and we can't keep running from it. Because if not, then the work that we're out here doing, whether it's that 9 to 5 job or it's, you know, community work, is going to continue to fail. And it's going to, well, I don't want to say continue to fail as if it's just failing, but it's going to continue to operate in a system that does not serve everyone that's involved. So I think those are great pieces, and I think those are great questions. So we are approaching. We're approaching the end. But again, I really just thank you for sitting down. I know that it was like last minute, but I was really excited about hearing your story and hearing like the behind the scenes and where you are with it, because you have a lot of eyes on you as you're doing it. Like, you're someone who is prominent in Cleveland, who has, you know, it's not just about the money, but like, you've raised millions of dollars for your organization. You've changed thousands of lives. You're still going out, as we've heard today, like still going out and cleaning up behind other people's mess. And, you know, and to birth that child, to have that child, and to have someone play in your face about that and still stay spiritually grounded and like on your journey, it says a lot about you. It says a lot about your characteristics. So it's like, when I say like start up high, I'll hold the spoon, I mean whatever. Like, I stand in solidarity aside on the side of you as you fight this fight. And it's like, in whatever ways that I or the audience or, you know, anyone can assist, like, please continue to use your voice. Please continue to let us know how we can assist you. while I have no connection to Jasmine, I understand what the Cat Williams say is they side and then it's God's side, and that's it, and that's the side, and that's the only side that matters, and so it's that. So congratulations on what's to come. Congratulations on everything you've done. Congratulations on the journey, all of the lives that you're going to continue to change, and I'm excited to see you win nonetheless. Like, excited. And fuck them people. Fuck them people.
I know that's right. Cause listen, I only run with winners, and sometimes I be having to like check myself because even I had wrote, I don't know if I still got it on there. I was like, man, I said the loser list just keep getting longer and longer.
No,
because I don't be doing. Because sometimes I'm like, look, I don't know how to say nothing other than I don't know how to say things any other way than how I need to say it, right? How I have to say it, which is why I really talk about like, and I always got on that hoodie that say made in the Cleveland hood, and when I talk about, you know, hood shit, because the reality is that's the language I know how to speak they language, whatever that language is, that fake shit.
Yeah.
But I also, this is the language, it's my native tongue. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The hood talk is, that's my native tongue. So
that's what you're going to get.
That's what you're going to get. And so I'm talking to you, and like, I got to say it like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I wrote, I'm like, be a better fucking person. That's just, I don't know how to say that any other way.
Yeah.
Be a better fucking person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that is that, and that's just the truth. That's just the nature, right? It's like I don't have the energy to try to create other words and look at other words and how sentences is structured. And I'm a writer.
I'm not about to cater to your feelings at the end of the day.
This is just what it is. This is what it is, and I don't know how to say it no other way. And you will be all right.
Because they will. They definitely will. This was great. I'm gonna turn this camera off, but this is
thank you for inviting me and giving me a chance to, you know, speak my piece and share my story.
I appreciate it, man. Like I even this is our second interview together because we did the live the one time.
Oh yeah, we did.
I forget what we was talking about. I think it was nonprofit stuff, but I think, and I said this even prior to like us recording of that thing of like, you lived in the bubble. I wasn't in no damn bubble. I wasn't in no damn bubble. Like this shit been going on, like for real, in a lot of different spaces. And I don't say it in a way to say, oh, Alicia's always been an angel. I'm not, because I get like that. Like you know, so we can whatever. But at the end of the day, I know that I step into everything genuinely. I step being pure-hearted. I know that it's never been no snake shit. And so to experience that, to step into spaces and communities that I'm not even from, and to pour into like my people because I genuinely care about pouring into you, and to see how cliquish the city is, and how if you not with the right person, or if you're not moving with this certain person, or if you ain't doing these certain things, then now you're blackballed, or now you can't go into these spaces, or now if this person don't mess with you, I don't mess with you. It's stopping the progress. It's stopping the solution from being performed, or it's slowing it up, not stopping it. Like it's slowing it up. And I think it takes people like yourself to speak up on it and to encourage others, because like, because like that was
I was actually here earlier, but I had to run an errand and stop and do some stuff.
Somebody said blessings to you, bro.